Today I'm going to show you how to make the party favors for the religious party theme. These are cute little doves made out of felt. So the things that you need is one white felt, and I don't know if you can tell by the camera, I got the kind that has kind of some glitter in it, which I thought was really pretty, but you could just use plain white. You're going to need some gray felt, just a little bit. The gray felt is for the leaves if you choose to add them, and you definitely need it for his beak. And then some black beads. I got these little beads. Some embroidery thread in both gray and white. Some flowers. I got these in the wedding section of the craft store, and they're the kind that come in like big bunches. And I liked both of them, so I decided to get both. Some gray satin ribbon. If you choose to do, I'll show you at the end what I do with the gray ribbon. Regular sewing needles to sew it together. Some filler. And what you're going to need if you choose to sew on your beads, which is what I did. If you don't want to sew on your beads, you could glue them together. But if you want to sew them on, you're going to need a real thin needle that's specifically for beading. And that way your needle fits through the whole of the bead. So if you want to sew them on, you're going to need to buy that if you don't have that. And then our stencil, the stencil that we've been using for the invitation and also for the centerpiece. And I created a little stencil. I just drew out a hand for the leaf if you choose to do the leaf. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your stencil and you're going to want to work on the back side of your felt, and you're going to trace out your birds. And again, as I said before, what I like to do is trace a whole bunch of birds and then put them in a bag so that when I go places and I'm waiting, I can just pull it out and cut my birds out. Now for the bird, you're going to need 2 for each one. So you're going to do some birds this way and then flip it over and do some birds on the back. And the reason I do that is because when you trace with a pen, you don't want the pen marks showing on your bird. So you want to make sure that you're tracing both ways so that you have a good front on both sides. So go ahead and trace your birds, and then we're going to cut them out. Okay, so I have 2 pieces cut out, and as you see, you can see a little trace of the ink. So you just want to make sure that they're always on the inside of your, and the outside's the sparkle. So I'm going to demonstrate how to sew this up with gray. I used white on my birds, but I think the gray will you'll be able to see it better. I start at the tip of the bird, and I'm going to sew up and around the top. So that way when you get around to here, you can stuff the bird easily with your filler, and then you'll continue to sew the end. It's really basic stitch. So you want to knot your thread. I'm using embroidery thread, but you can use regular thread. It doesn't really matter, but I'm using 2 strands of embroidery thread. So you basically just want to start, and you're going to just go in just a little bit from the edge and a little bit away from your other stitch. You pull it through, and then you take your needle and you come up through that loop, and then you pull it, and that's what gives you that stitch. So then you go over a little bit more, taking your needle down through the fabric, and then bring your needle up through that loop and then pull it tight. And that's pretty much all you do. And you just work your way around trying to space it the same. And the nice thing about working with felt is it doesn't fray, so you don't have to worry about your edges. And once you get going on this, it does go by rather quickly. So I'm going to show you when you get to a corner. So we're going to do one more stitch here, down, and then pull your needle through. When you get to a corner, what I do is I put it down here, and then the corner, I'm going to pull it right to the corner, like so. So that kind of just nicely takes your corner. So any corner, whether it be in or out, right here, I would do here. So it's a corner here to the corner. And it just gives it a nice edge. So then your next one, you're just going to pull around, and you just want to pull it straight out so that your thread comes straight out. And if you like it, you know, it does look really pretty with the gray. I chose to do white, but you could also do the gray if you wanted to see it. See the difference between the white just kind of blends in, but if you like, you can actually make it more of a crafty type look, and you can actually then see the threads, and that looks just as cute. Okay, so as I said, you're going to work your way all the way around. When you get to about here, you're going to want to stop and put the fill in, and I just put it in with little pieces, and you may want a pencil or pen to shove it up into the corner so that you fill the whole bird up real tight, and then you want to just continue to go until you get back to the edge that you started with. Now the only thing that you need to remember, and I'll show you when I get around there, is the beak. The beak I don't glue in or anything. I just basically, when I get to this point, I'm going to sew it right into the bird. So you want to cut your triangles for your beak. Now I just want to show you when you start. I ran out of thread, so I'm restarting. I just put my needle through the top layer and just brought it out here right where your last stitch was. So that way the knot is on the inside, so you're not going to see it, and it just picks up where you left off so that you don't see that it's a new thread. You won't even know. So see how that works. That is nice. So then you don't have any knots sticking out on the bottom, and you don't even know where your one thread stopped and where the other one started. So now I'm getting around to the head, and this is where the beak is going to go. So you just basically want to put your beak in, and I cut it large enough so that it fits in there nicely. So it's, you know, not right on the edge. You want enough so that you can have enough to stitch. And then basically you're just going to go around and just go over it just as if the beak wasn't there. Just stitch down like you normally would. Okay, so I put my needle down, and in order to pull it, I'm just going to have to bring my needle up through the beak and then pull it. So that way you don't even, so do it again. I pull it down, and then I put my needle up through the material, the beak, and catch it. So then that way it's sewed right in. So you just want to continue around, fill it, and then continue to the end. Okay, so if you're going to sew your beads on, like I said, you're going to need a special needle for it. The only thing I warn you about is it is very hard to thread because it's very tiny. So you want to just use a single thread of sewing thread, and make it as long as possible, because once you thread your needle, you're not going to want to do it again. And not the end, just cut off the string so that it's not hanging out, and put it through where you want your eye. And then you're just going to put your one bead, if I can find the hole, through the needle, and see it's so thin it goes straight through. And then you want to take your needle right back through the hole, right back where you came up. And that's your one eye. And then you're going to do your other eye So you want to thread the other bead. And then you're just going to pull it tight and then just tie it off with, I just put a little bit. Just through, oh, it's catching a little bit. Pull it as tight as you can and then make a knot and pull it tight. And that will give you your eye. So your next step for putting your bird together is the 2 leaves and the flower. So the flower, I basically, like I said, I got the wedding flowers. I cut them just right off at the stem and just pushed it over so it'll lay flat. With this, it's a little bit easier because the flower is big enough to cover. If you do this, just twist it around and see, you'll just glue it on like that. Now the leaves, you can choose to have the leaves or not. I like it. I think it adds a nice touch. So basically you're going to take your leaf stencil and your gray felt and cut them out. And then I just stitched just a chain of stitches along the leaf, knotted it at the end because this end you're going to be gluing down and covering with your flowers. So start at this end and just stitch it down to this end. And do that for each of your leaves. For each bird, you're going to need 2 leaves. So now we're going to go hot glue our 2 leaves and our flower. Okay, so I just glued the 2 leaves down. Like I said, the knot where you knotted them, that's the side you want to glue down. And then all you want to do is put a little glue on your flower and glue your flower to your bird. Now you'll notice my birds have little rosy cheeks. All I did for that was just took a little Q-tip, put a little blush on, and just rubbed it in and did both sides like that. Just gently rub it in, and that gives them a nice cute little rosy cheek if you want to add that as an extra touch. Then on the back, you could do several things. You could hang a string from it. They could use this as like a Christmas ornament. What I did was I put a little piece of satin ribbon, and all I did was just took my embroidery thread and just attached a piece of ribbon going up and down to my bird, like so. Just put like 1 stitch in it. It doesn't have to be any big deal. Doesn't even really have to be too tight. And tie it off in a knot. So why I attached the ribbon was I put my silverware together and tied it into a knot, and then I put that as my place setting, and so the bird stood up. He was being held up by the silverware. You could do white silverware or gray silverware, and I did that at each place setting, and I thought that that was cute. It gave them their silverware, and it also decorated the table nice. So that's the party favor part of our series on the religious party theme. So if this is your first time watching, welcome, and please don't forget to subscribe. If you want to receive future notification of posts, hit the bell. And if you like the video, please give us a thumbs up. It lets us know what you like. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.